being an artist, you're a character. So I think the people that's like you, that's not really in this, not really from the culture, y'all take it as if, damn, this really won. Oh, this really such and such. These people be characters. You ever seen Famous Dex? He be two different people. The baby, he be two different people. So just because Vaughn was just tweeting, oh, I want to catch a body, he could have been talking about knocking down a female or something. You know what I'm saying? Or he could have just been tweeting it. That don't mean that these things actually really be going on. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a lot of people, like I was on the phone with THF Zoo yesterday, right? Bay Zoo. Y'all don't even know these YouTube videos be having them people picking them up. Times when they spend time in the county and they fighting another case, y'all drop a YouTube video about a body. Them people come pick them up. He in the crib chilling or a little less, sitting in doing his time. He getting picked up. All because of YouTube videos. And Vaughn didn't tell you, oh, I killed K.I. I killed this person. I killed, it's all speculations, but I understand, like, your whole point. Like, he put it out there for the people, right? But I just be wanting y'all to think about when y'all put these videos out about the people that's still living in these communities that can possibly end up shot, killed, or just a whole nother war. And it be like, y'all make y'all money off YouTube, y'all get so famous that y'all don't even care. But at the end of the day, we got innocent women, grandmothers, grandfathers dying off of you because of YouTube videos. And no, I mean,
because of me.
Your video, I'm pretty sure it sparked, because I've been on the phone with people and they was mad about the Lil James situation. Like when you put the wrong picture up there. That created something. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't really know what really came from that. You know what I'm saying? Because you put that body on Vaughn. Now, they slide on somebody from O Block and they ain't kill somebody over there now. All because you put the wrong picture up there. But you ain't gonna feel no sympathy from that. But that mother, that father, that daughter, that son, they gonna feel all of that. You feel what I'm saying? And I don't even want to say like no hater, like I'm knocking your video, because I'm really not knocking. I understand what's going on, and I told you. If they get online and these rappers, they tell on themselves. But my whole point is be thinking about the bigger picture sometimes. And make sure you got real facts. Because if Vaughn didn't tell you this, you're right, it's all speculation. But just know you keeping the wars alive with everything that's going on. When you mention those 10 people, just know it's people on the other side sliding now. That probably weren't even thinking about sliding in O Block because why? They got other options. But now when you go mention Vaughn and they killed little such and such, guess what? Just know they was sliding. And people like you do be the cause for that, bro. And I just want you to know, while you make all your money and you chill in the UK, keep that on your mind. And make sure that you putting some reserve funds away and you be sending money back to these neighborhoods to help bury some of these babies. Because this how deep it is. Because it be a lot of babies getting buried because of YouTube videos. It's a lot of people getting locked up because of YouTube videos. And that was my whole point with my video.
So I'm gonna jump in real quick right here. Two things. Number one, I'm gonna say something for the people in the chat. I see Balo down there. I promise that this will be a conversation between these two guys. If Ross wants to talk to Balo later, or if that's cool with these two guys on the live, I'd love to have them in. I see what you guys are saying, so I'm not ignoring y'all. I do want to come back to Dave real quick and ask Dave something before we go to Ross. Dave, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have, I just asked you this, are going to have a hard time believing that there's anything outside of a specific culture that exists in Chicago that can be, that the violence there can be blamed on. Now, I was down there, I talked to you, and it seems like for people that grew up in certain parts of the city, there's just an understanding of how things go. So it's your belief, and before I move on to this, I'll say one more thing. it doesn't seem like any other rappers from the areas that they don't want. It seems like part of their reputation and part of their personal identity is to let people know the stuff that they're doing. So I guess what I would say, the first thing I would jump out is it okay when they say that they're killers and they want to kill people and sign on their ops, but not okay when somebody else who might be covering them says that that's what they said? Like, what to you is the difference there? Is it the fact that they're in the lifestyle, or is it the fact that guys like Ross
It's both.
people don't have any connection to Chicago?
It's the part with the rapper telling on himself, you know, as I spoke about. But it'd be more of the instigating to me. Like, you ever been in a situation that was kind of like if somebody just shut up and it diffused the whole situation? But it'd be the whole thing of how they just start really glorifying. Like, I feel like even him, he infatuated with people infatuated with all this killing until they're in the middle of it. Until you hearing them switches going on. Until you getting your brother picture on your t-shirt. Then you ain't infatuated with it no more. There's really a way of life for black people. And it's sad, you know? But I just don't like when it's really being glorified like that. Because it's like sometimes just shh. It's kind of like trying to let it die down some. And then they come with these big documentaries. Oh, this person the number one killer. Oh, the number one sniper. And then it'd be like, come on, man, be quiet. Like, you know, we do be trying to bring some type of peace with it, even though we're a long, long way from it. But it's like the instigating, it just get on my nerves, and it get on a lot of people's nerves. And it's like, we not telling you don't put your work out. No, put your work out. We understand that. But when you do put in your work out, be thinking about the other people. And that's like my whole point. I don't have no beef with them. I don't hate them. I don't feel like that. I just hate when I just be seeing these wars and all these bodies. And in Chicago right now, it's more females are dying like the guys, man. Every time you look on Instagram or Facebook, I'm seeing women. And it's sad. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I know all of that is fuel to the fire. So it's like, come on, man, we don't need all that right now.
Ross, you got as much time as you want to respond, and I'm going to come
Cool.
back.
So, I mean, Dave, listen, I respect where you're coming from on several of your points, and I think that, you know, I understand why you feel this way, but I think my perspective is just slightly different. I do disagree with a lot of what you just said. I think the first thing that I've got to say I disagree on is, you know, the idea that people are sliding behind my video, I just disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is because, one, people don't slide about something they heard on the internet. Like, people don't slide about a YouTube documentary. They slide about one of their homies got killed, one of their friends got murdered in cold blood. You know, how do you explain all the sliding that went on last week before my video came out? You know, all the different things that have been going on in Chicago. You can't really take that stretch and blame it on me and say people are sliding about my video. Like, I'm not exposing information that's not already out there. Like, this is all stuff that was on King Von's Twitter, in King Von's songs. I think the idea that you're going to try and pin violence on me is a bit of a stretch. And I know this is what they do this is what a lot of people have done to DJ Akademiks as far as, like, you know, the war in Chirac being responsible for the violence. But if you just look at the chain of events, like, the violence has already occurred before I turned up and started looking into it. Like, I wouldn't even bother Googling somebody's name if they weren't already implicated in these situations, right? So it's really a case of, like, the violence was already going on. I'm just here reporting on it. And I think any attempt to kind of blame me or even Akademiks, but let's stick with me, like, to say that people are sliding about my video, I think that's just, like, it's a really bad faith way of trying to, like, avoid responsibility, because the people that are really responsible for the sliding or the violence, you know, at the basic level, it's the individuals involved that are picking up a gun and choosing to cause violence. But then at another level, fine, if you want to make the next distinction, it's the city, it's the mayors, the politicians that have allowed these areas to get so bad, so dangerous, where there's no opportunities, that people are kind of forced into these, you know, gang situations where they need to use a gang for protection. I think those people, the politicians, and just the lack of guidance in these areas is much more responsible for the violence than, like, me reporting on it. Because I wouldn't have any, if it hadn't already happened, I wouldn't have anything to report on, right? So it's kind of like, I just think it's a stretch to try and blame me. And I think that the people that need to, for my genuine opinion, is the people that really need to take accountability is, like, the city, the police, the mayor, because let's be real, like Chicago is a fucked up place. It's been in a messed up situation for the past, 20 years, realistically, 20 years plus, where these things have been allowed to happen. Someone like Von, setting aside his music career, like we shouldn't have had a young guy that's in a situation where their father's getting killed when they're 11, right? He's already starting off at a disadvantage with that situation, right? So it's kind of like the circumstances that exist that allow young people to fall in these dangerous situations, whether it's gang violence or you've got situations in Chicago where people are doing robberies and that's going wrong and they're ending up in, people are ending up hurt and killed as a result of that. But like at the end of the day, I think it's just such a stretch to try and blame me and YouTube videos when really all we're trying to do is report on what's going on. Like you've got a guy like King Von who's making Billboard charting songs about how he's killed 7 people. That's really glorifying the violence. You got the guy that's literally committing the murders, rapping about it, getting paid. He's a millionaire. Listen, bro, like I make a bit of money. I'm not a millionaire. I'm nowhere near a millionaire. Like King Von was a millionaire wearing APs and diamond chains off the back of allegedly killing people and rapping about it, right? So I don't think I glorify it. I think in my video, I'm actually very careful and very thoughtful when it comes to saying, you said you watched the whole video, so I'm sure you saw it, but there's a section in the video where I explain, look, let's take a step back before we get into this and look at why these circumstances were allowed to happen. I talk about King Von being born into a difficult situation, losing his father at a young age, losing a lot of his friends at a young age. He himself says that seeing his friend White get killed in front of him turned him into a demon. And it's like, these are the situations, like this messed up environment in Chicago that's been allowed to happen by the city and the state and whoever else is responsible for things getting so bad. Those are the things that turned people into demons or fucked people up. I think to say that people like me that are reporting on it and just trying to give perspective about what's going on in these Billboard charting songs, the guy's going to turn on the radio and hear a guy talking about he's got 7 bodies. I think we all have a right to know whether or not that's true, what the stories are behind that. But I really struggle to agree when it comes to suggesting that like I'm responsible for the violence. And I think people that watch my video all the way through, I think you can see I try and approach this topic with a responsible tone. I try and say, look, there are reasons why things are so fucked up in Chicago, especially if you watch my video on the murder of FBG Duck, where, set aside the whole serial killer for a minute. My video on the murder of FBG Duck, I say in that video numerous times, look, you got 5 people here that committed a heinous murder, but these are 5 people who grew up losing all of their best friends, and they were pushed into this situation where it was kill or be killed. So it's kind of like, I think there are people that glorify this kind of stuff. I think you've got channels like Hip Hop Daily, where you've got dudes that are basically just using a robot voice to just fucking, make the easiest, cheapest, most sensational way of cashing in on these bodies. But I'm not one of those. I try and approach my topics very responsibly. I try and do the research the best I can possibly do. And I'll admit, my video had a couple of mistakes in it, a couple of wrong pictures that we got fixed, but that's facts. And I'm willing to admit that, but I don't think that it's fair to say that, like, you could say that my video is responsible for violence. The majority of my videos on gang conflict, I'll usually end the video saying the violence has to stop. If you ever see my project on the Jacksonville gang war, I end that video by saying this has to stop. Project on the Jacksonville gang war. You've got to try and find a way of improving things in these areas. And I think that it's just a stretch to necessarily say I'm responsible or I'm stoking it. Because if that's the case, then why was everybody sliding before I dropped my video or before I was making YouTube videos? This has been going on for decades. So that's my view, but I'm interested in your response.
All right. I'm gonna jump in and throw one more question back to you, just like I did to Dave, real quick. So the societal conditions that exist in Chicago and the culture that exists in parts of Chicago that kind of perpetuates this cyclical violence, obviously those things don't have anything to do with Trap Lord Ross or with any video that you might put up. We can all say that, right? That goes for any place. But do you see any merit to the idea that there might have been somebody somewhere, because the video already has 1 million views. And when I watched it, obviously, you're good at what you do. It's incredibly well done. But when I watched it, I knew that this would be a big video. It'll probably get to 5, maybe even 7, 10 million views. Do you see the possibility that there might be somebody that goes, you know what? I forgot about all of this, or I'm not, I haven't been really on this, or this hasn't been top of mind, or look at the amount of people, or when you see a picture of somebody that you love that might be X'd out by the other side, if that puts a battery in your back, do you see that as a possibility from your content? And if you do see it as a possibility of your content, what is the overarching value of your content that you feel like undercuts the notion that there's even a possibility that it can lend itself?
So I personally don't believe that at all, like straight up. I just don't believe that, because if that's true, then by the same notion, you've got to tell the Chicago Tribune to just stop reporting complete media blackout on every murder that happens in Chicago. Because bear in mind, the majority of the names, information in my video, it's clippings from the Chicago Tribune, Chicago Sun-Times, original reporting on these situations going on. You know, you can't just suppress the facts. Like, if somebody gets killed, you can't just have a media blackout and say, nobody can ever talk about that this ever happened in case violence continues to happen. And we all know as a fact that if somebody gets killed in one of these conflicts, it's not people aren't sliding on the Chicago Sun-Times. They're trying to kill the person that killed their loved one. Like, let's be real. Let's break this down. Like, people, like, it just is absurd to me that people are sliding about videos like, oh, they killed my cousin and I wasn't going to do shit. But then Traplaw Ross mentioned it in a video 12 years later, and now it's time to slide. Like, to me, that's just an absurd leap in logic, when in reality, you need people like me, Chicago Sun-Times, Akademiks, talking about these things. Because if we don't talk about the murders that are happening in these places, it's just going to get swept under the rug and no one's ever going to do anything. I think the city needs to acknowledge what's going on and do more. You know, seeing the mayor with Lil Durk after everything that he has said in music and that he has, you know, associated himself with, I think that does far more damage for the next generation of Chicago and stopping gang violence than someone like me regurgitating information that's already been reported in the Chicago Sun-Times 10 years ago. But at the same time, I can totally understand if the one thing I can walk down on what you're suggesting is I can understand why it would definitely hurt people's feelings if somebody that they lost many years ago in a gang conflict is being mentioned again, that maybe they've forgotten. It's maybe opening that old wound. I can understand why that might hurt somebody's feelings, but at the same time, this is all derived from a guy, King Von, who was on songs talking about he killed 7 people, his own words in his own songs. And I found it really, really surprising how many people have kind of like come out to try and defend this seemingly serial killer who killed at least 7 people by his own lyrics. And no one spares a thought to the young black men and women that this guy allegedly killed. You know, nobody wants to spare a thought to the families of the people who Von allegedly took away. You know, I've got in my video, you've got once Von dies, you've got the relatives of the people that he killed celebrate. And it's kind of a case of like, it does kind of like, it's kind of crazy to me that so many people are coming out trying to defend Von when, you know, the reality is, this is the guy that was killing people. If people are sliding, it's because this guy killed one of their friends. It's not because me or the news or Akademiks are talking about it. And that's the way I see it. Maybe not everyone agrees, but that's my perspective. So,
I mean, he making good points. The only good point of view is like, he don't know. He's just not aware of clout. It's the biggest drug in the world right now, besides fentanyl. These people are literally watching your videos like yours, or watching CNN News, or watching Fox 32 of murders, going home to watch the news to see their work being displayed. Just know there's somebody right now thinking, I want to be on that Trap Ross video. Let's go out, do these murders, talk about it in some songs, and hope that they can get your attention. They're craving this. And you can't tell me that you don't know people is craving this, man. As intelligent as you seem, and I know you are highly intelligent. I can tell. I definitely can tell by your work, that documentary. So I know you gotta know that you're helping create other many. We can't say Von was a serial killer. He was never convicted of not one murder. Not one murder. Even when they thought that they had him for a murder, what happened? Beat the cases, right? That means he didn't do it. And I'm not on here like just taking Von's side. No, I'm just speaking facts. He was never convicted of not one murder, even though he rapped about it. You got Future rap about drugs. And people that be around and say Future do not pop fucking pills. People just put things that sound good to people. I'm pretty sure, Van, you done heard this. They say Future talk about Molly and all this shit. And guess what? You didn't see him off no Molly. People in Chicago.
Future. I don't know. I'm not about to stop you, Dave. Future like to get high. But
I don't know. See, now look, the only way you know that is if you was there with him and you was getting high with him or something. I wasn't with him, so I can't say that. But I just know that these stories, it be bigger. And I understand like the payola behind it. And I know that you don't want to have no ownership, knowing that you're linked to a possible murder. Because just know your story gonna be linked to it. And just know this is something that you just gotta deal with and live with. And it's okay to have ownership. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to put yourself to the side, because really it looked like a culture vulture. Like every time it's going on in Chicago, because I guess we like the biggest when it comes to this in America. So that's why everybody gravitates to Chicago, because it's a gangster city. You know what I'm saying? But it's always somebody just coming in, getting rich off of this, and all we doing is dying and going to funerals. And all we hearing is, no, I'm not in it for the money. I love Vaughn. I heard you say you love Vaughn music, but when you was on an interview with Adam 22 and he told you something about karaoke, just like Lathan, if you was really a Vaughn fan, I didn't hear you stand up to Vaughn at that moment. So I paid attention to that video. You remember that on the Adam 22 video? That was deep to me. It was, because if you was really a Vaughn fan, you would have got offended by that comment, right?
Yeah, in my defense on that comment, I didn't really catch that at the time. He kind of said it. But at the same time, I'll be honest, like, I don't disagree with a lot of what you've just said, actually. I actually agree with a lot of what you just said. I think we are actually right now, we're in an era of crazy internet clout where you are right. I think people are killing and crashing out and committing murders for clout on the internet. I'm not disagreeing with you. There may be someone out there who does feel like I'm going to catch a body and it's going to be in a Trap Law Ross video and that's going to put me on. But what I would say is that I think that to blame me for that is unfair, because I think that's part of a much wider conversation. Whereas I think clout, mainly due to social media, I think you've got guys like, for instance, this BTB Savage situation, which I didn't cover. I don't know that much about, but you got a situation where a guy, a self-defense killing, he's putting it on social media. He's getting all of this attention, capitalizing off of it to get attention on social media. And then he ends up, unfortunately, losing his life as a direct result of this. I don't think many people are blaming the social media platforms. No one's saying, you're kind of saying like Trap Law Ross is in the wrong because he's creating this atmosphere of people doing crimes to get clout. But nobody says, hey, we need to ban Instagram from allowing these gang members to have a platform. And these social media accounts, these social media platforms, they are a big part of this situation. They're stoking all of this, all of this stuff that's going on. They're giving a voice to it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think Instagram, whether it's Chicago Sun-Times, my channel, they're all part of a much bigger problem, which I think is just the fact that we've got a society where people are being allowed to fall through the cracks. And, you've got situations where people are having these gang conflicts and they're just putting it out there for the whole world to see and nobody's stopping it. I mean, these guys killing each other, it shouldn't even get to Instagram, whether it's the cops shutting it down and having some sort of intervention to stop these conflicts getting to this level, or just not letting the city become such a fucking nightmare where people are shooting out in broad daylight. I think it's like, once again, it's just like, it is all playing out on social media, but it's not Mark Zuckerberg's fault. You know what I mean? I'm reporting on this stuff because, let's be real, you said it yourself, Chicago drill is number one when it comes to hip-hop music. Like, Chicago, the drill wave, your city is the hottest topic when it comes to music. And part of that is because the music is amazing. Part of that is also because the stories and the violence behind it is so raw. And again, it's not, it's the same thing of like, do you want to blame the record labels? Like, King Von, let's be real, was one of the biggest clout chasers when it came to hopping on songs and talking about, I've murdered so many people. And no one ever really levels this same thing at the record label. Nobody ever says, hey, Empire Music, you shouldn't platform this stuff. Somebody might slide. And bear in mind, you've got me doing a documentary about, maybe the nuance behind some of these stories. But then you've got Empire Distribution, putting out a song by King Von where he's saying, my shorties are catching bodies for me, and the body is a guy that got killed the week before, that's definitely going to stoke violence. Or like, for example, the other option is like FBG Duck, when he made that song Dead Bitches, and he's talking about he's smoking on this person, that person, this person, that have all been killed in this gang war. Very rarely do you see people stand up and say, you know what, maybe Duck's music contributed to what happened. Maybe Von saying that all of these different people got smoked. Tuka, people saying they've been smoking Tuka for the last 15 years in the rap game. And it's like, nobody ever says, Chief, like, let's stop listening to Chief Keef, or let's take down Chief Keef's music. It's kind of like, it's a much bigger part. It's like my channel, the social media, the music. I think it's all a much bigger part of like a much wider situation that's going on in society, that ultimately, like me taking down a video or Akademiks saying that he's not doing war in Chirac, I don't think these things will solve the problem. You know what I mean? But I actually agree with you that I think we're in this fucked up clout era where violence is essentially being rewarded by clout and attention. If you come out and you're the new rapper and you say you got 3 bodies, even DaBaby, when he came out and it was like he had the self-defense shooting, that blew him up. And that's actually a fucked up state that society and media is in. But I just don't think it's my fault. I think I'm at the bottom of the pile talking about this crazy shit that's going on.
So,
but I don't think it's my fault.
I'm not putting everything on you. I'm not. I'm just telling you that you are a leaf on the actual tree. That's all I'm telling you. But the really big issue that I have is that everything that you gathered was just from the internet. Like, you didn't talk to nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't interview not one person. You didn't come to Chicago and sit down like a van would have did. You know what I'm saying? So that make it like it's not authentic to me and the people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you speaking on things and you didn't talk to not one human being. Everybody you talk to is from the UK, and you want us to respect the work. That I can't lie. It was immaculate. Had look, it was off the chain. Like, you probably spent a couple $100,000 on it. But it's fictional. It's no real people. So if you going off everything that you're being told from someone that hasn't even spoke to this person. So that makes it like a ghost chasing a ghost. It's not really, don't exist. So now then you put a serial killer, that's deep. That's like a dude raped one person, but you call him a serial rapist. He only raped one woman, and that's not good. You know what I'm saying? But that's deep though when you get to go a serial killer. Now we finna create a bunch of serial killers in the communities throughout the whole world. That video, because guess what? Everybody, because now they finna feel like I can be known like fun. I can be next to a dirt. I can have a record label. I can get $1 million because they gonna think this the way. Because you make it seem like it's just so cool with your video. You get what I'm saying? And I know you always say allegedly, but you also be saying that Bun did do these murders. So it be confusing me. Do you believe this yourself? Or is you putting it together because it's a plot for the people?
You know what?
Let me jump in one. Let me jump in one. And kind of just streamline one thing. The title of the video, because I watch a lot of your videos, and I think your reporting is pretty incredible. For what you're able to do and how you're able to piece things together. I think it's a lot of it's very informative. I learned a lot. This particular video is one that the title is suggestive, which is a little different when covering this type of thing for you. I've seen videos in the past, and one video was like how Jay-Z got finessed, or how Jay-Z finessed Dame Dash, or something like that. But a lot of times when you're talking about the back and forth that might exist in some of these communities, the videos are kind of straight up. It's like, hey, Jacksonville's deadly gang war, something that we can all agree is happening. Or the murder of FBG Duck, how that happened. This video particularly, I want to get your answer as to why you felt the need to name it this, says King Von raps first serial killer. And obviously charged the language in terms of like, wow, what a title. Rather than have this be the life of King Von, the street dealings of King Von, why was it important for you to use the designation as serial killer for Von? And what sort of journalistic conclusion were you trying to get to by naming it that? Why was that?
Yeah, that's a really
important
good question. I spent quite a few months putting together this video. Obviously, I know a lot about Von. You know, I've been a big fan of his for a long time, but also, you know, I've been following the situations and the drama surrounding him. I've covered him in the past. I didn't set out initially to do the serial killer documentary about him. I was trying to do his whole life story. But I'll just be honest, man. At a certain point, when I start putting it together, because look, he said in 1 million songs, I've got 7 bodies. How many bodies? I've got 3 plus 4. You're going to need 3 hands to count my bodies, right? So, look, we gotta just, like, some of the arguments I feel that have been made recently are a little bit in bad faith. Like, we got to all just agree, Von was out here saying he killed 7 people in numerous songs. Like, that's not up for debate. So the purpose of this video initially was I wanted to go through every alleged body and basically debunk it or prove it and say, like, okay, he says in his song 7 bodies. Who are they? Let me make a list. Who are they? I did all the research I could. I found the most likely names. Because bear in mind, that picture that's going around on social media of like 11 different people that he's been connected to, it got reported as if like these are the 11 bodies Von has. If you watch the video, I say, look, these are all of the names of the murders that Von has been connected to. Like, the purpose of the video was to basically say, true or false, he's on song saying I've killed 7 people. Who are those 7, and did they happen? And during the process of the video, like, I read every single tweet that man ever tweeted. Every single tweet he tweeted. I read the FBI definition of a serial killer. I listened to every single Von song that he ever did, every feature. And I came to the conclusion, my personal opinion, is that he is a serial killer. He killed more than 3 people in different locations over a different time span, and he got personal gratification out of letting the whole world know that he was a killer, that he would do this again. And clearly, his whole infamy was based on that. Like, let's be real. A lot of people want to change the narrative now and act like Von was an angel. But right up until he died, the story was Von is the biggest demon. He has 7 bodies. That's why we like him. That's just fact. So the reason I gave it that title, I know it's sensational, and I knew that this would provoke a strong response, but I felt like the content of the video proves that he's a serial killer. I mean, I've said numerous times, it's my opinion that he meets the description of a serial killer by the FBI. I know a lot of people disagree. I felt like at a certain point, it was like, I think all the evidence in front of me, 300 pages of research said this guy meets the requirements for a serial killer. So I said, I'm going to title it that. But I just want to do one thing. I know we disagree on a lot of things, Dave, but I just got to ask you straight up, do you believe personally that King Von killed anyone?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you if Von killed somebody. Like, I wasn't with him. Not listening to his music, I would think he killed somebody. But me personally, no, I can't say that.
See, I guess it's difficult because it's kind of like...
Way to stay solid. Way to stay solid.
Okay,
there,
but then, okay,
don't.
so let's add to that, right?
What the fuck you think you gonna say?
Let's add to that, okay? You don't believe Von killed anyone. He's got a tweet saying, I killed 5 GDs. So is that cat? Just cat. All cat.
It's cat. He ain't been found guilty of it.
It's cat.
I'm not allowed, man.
Straight cat. And he said he beat the case because they killed the witness. That's cat too.
I can't tell you that. I ain't from that neighborhood.
Okay.
I ain't in the mix with that.
Ross, you're gonna bump up against a lot of politics. These are questions.
I think it's important. I think it's important to show that because it's kind of like I appreciate the debate, and I'll take on anyone and debate anything, to be honest. But it's kind of like if you're coming from it from the perspective of Von never did any of the shit he was rapping about, and that his raps are all caps. Like, come on, man. Like we were listening to Von because he said he had 7 bodies, and everyone said Von was the realist, and he tweeted that he was whacking GDs often, and to kind of like revise history and sort of say, and I know you're keeping it solid, and we're from very different worlds, and I completely understand how that goes, but it's kind of like, if you want to get on and argue with me about the video's all cap, but at the same time, like, the dude was saying that he killed 7 people in his music, and he was known as the realest rapper out. It's sort of like, it's hard to take the argument into that next level when we can't really like establish those the basic facts that he wasn't convicted of any murders, fine, but
it'd be like
he killed 7 people.
You better than the FBI. You actually doing the wrong profession. Because it's like the fans. I'm pretty sure they would have Von already if he was a serial killer. If you found it this easy with it being online, don't you think the fans would have already had him?
That's a good question, and here's my genuine response to that. Right, I at least I had 3 whole years from since Von passed away to research this, and we all know that while he was alive, the feds were on his ass. So if you listen to his album Welcome to O Block, the literal first lyric of that album is "Police steady watching me." Like, he knew the feds were watching him. There's that clip in the documentary you see. He was flying on a plane the month before he died, and the feds were literally stopping him, searching his bags on the plane. So they were onto him. And then if you look at the documents related to the FBG Duck murder, you know, there's a lot of references to basically say that, you know, this guy was providing money to the block and arranging for these murders to happen. So I think that actually, I know it's kind of funny to say like, oh, I'm like the feds, I'm on it like the FBI. But actually, I'm 3 years late. And I think if Von was still alive, I think he would have been locked up with Muwok and all of those guys. Like, I think that's how it would have played out if he was still here. Because he knew that the feds were on him.
All right, let me ask you. Let me say something real quick because I want you to extrapolate kind of what it was that you were saying, Ross. So, you know, I don't. Not Dave's not going to say this. I'm not going to say this. I'm not pinning anything on anybody they weren't convicted for or anything like that. It's not what I'm doing. But let's say, for the sake of your next point, that you believe 100% of everything that Von put in all of his raps. Get to the point that you were about to.
I mean, like, that's the thing. If we believe everything... So here's the thing, right? Von... this is the problem I really struggle with a lot of the criticism I've been getting. Because it's a lot of people are coming out saying it's all cap. Von never did any of this. But right up until Von died, all anyone would ever say... And bear in mind, I eat, live, and breathe hip hop all day. I listen to all the hip hop that comes out. I read everything that's on the blogs. All anyone was saying until Von died was he's the realest. He's the realest Chicago drill rapper ever. His raps are all facts. You know, Von himself was dissing other rappers. Von was dissing NBA Youngboy, saying, "You got cap in your raps. You're not real like me." And Von's on songs talking about, "I killed 7 people." So it's almost like people want to come to me and say the argument of like, well, he was never convicted. But like, let's be real. He was on songs talking about, "I killed 7 people." He was known as the realist. Bear in mind, if somebody comes out tomorrow and says, "I'm the realest rapper, I killed 7 people," and there's no proof, we can't go and look up all of the details of all these different murders they were involved in, people are going to say it's cap and their career's not going anywhere. Now, I'm not saying it's good that hip-hop seems to reward violence at the moment. I actually don't think that's a good thing. And I listen to a lot of great hip-hop music by people that aren't killers, for the record. But like, I think when it comes to Von, it's just really disingenuous for everyone to kind of turn around now and be like, well, he was never convicted. Because when he was alive, he was running around saying, "I got 7 bodies, I am the realist." And everyone was like, yes, Von is the realist. That's why we fuck with him. And, you know, again, I'm sorry if I hurt anyone's feelings with the documentary or the title. But like, bro, I was there drinking the Kool-Aid, listening to Von's music back in 2019, 2020, going, this guy is the fucking realist. And now it's kind of like he's passed on and we've actually looked in and I've sat down and gone, well, he said he was the realist. These are all the real things that were going on at the time and they kind of add up. And for everyone to kind of turn around and go, it was all cap. I mean, I think it's a little bit ironic that we've got like Von's relatives coming out saying it was all cap. Von never did any of this. But like everybody was talking about how gangster he was when he was alive and how he was going to do this to this person and that to that person. But it's kind of like, look, all of the content around Von is, I'm the killer, I killed all these people, I was in all these situations. And I just don't know why everyone's got to kind of come at me and try and shut me down or take down the videos when I'm reading Von's tweets. I'm reading stuff the guy said himself, and he wanted to be known as a killer. I don't know if you saw, but there was that video that was really popular about Von when he was alive by Trap Geek called The Soft Spoken Assassin. And, you know, Von tweet, the day that came out, he tweeted, "I don't believe what all these white people are saying about me." But then a month later, he's changed his mind. He's calling himself the soft-spoken assassin. So he kind of fed into these narratives about him even when he was alive, right? So it's really difficult to argue with the fact that like all this is out there and he was the GOAT for being the realist when he was alive. And now 3 years later, everyone wants to kind of act like he was innocent when go and throw on one of his albums, and you're going to hear all the same shit that's in my video, basically.
Dave, you got anything else? By the way, Act, relax.
Big Act.
I see you acting up in the comments, Act. Relax. Y'all keep it kosher in the comments, man. Act always on some shit, man. Shout out Akademiks. Dave, you got anything else?
Tell me, Rose, like, what do you think of the culture? Like, what do you think the culture is?
Bro, I love that question, man. I think that the culture, it depends what culture we're talking about, but for me, hip-hop culture has always been about success and aspiration. So bear in mind, right, a lot of people come at me, and I completely understand. They say, you're just this white nerd from the suburbs in England. You don't know anything about this real hip-hop shit. And fine, you're kind of right. But at the same time, I grew up my whole life in this suburban English area, a million miles away from let's say, the Marcy Projects or Jamaica Queens. But I grew up listening to people like Jay-Z and 50 Cent, admiring them. These guys are my heroes. And for me, hip-hop was always about these guys that came from the most difficult situations. You got Jay-Z was literally, selling crack in the Marcy Projects, or 50 Cent was getting shot. They shot him 9 times. He's supposed to be dead. These guys bounced back from this and became multi-millionaires. Jay-Z's a billionaire. He became one of the greatest artists. In my opinion, like in 100 years' time, people are going to look back at people like Jay-Z as the great artists of this century. People like Jay-Z, 50 Cent. So to me, hip-hop culture has always been about aspiration. And let's be real, like young black men beating the odds. Because let's be real, look, I'm not black. I can't say that I've experienced the black experience, but I love black culture. I love black music. And, I don't think that anyone, some people say I'm a racist, but I just don't buy it. But it's kind of like, I think that these stories are so important. Yeah, I've not experienced the persecution that a black person has, and that's fucked up. But at the same time, it's like, to me, hip hop was always about black people overcoming the odds, making amazing art, amazing music, and making their lives better, moving away from the negativity. And I think that Chicago drill is in a really interesting space where, to me, Chicago drill was all about these guys that were in the most deadly, dangerous situations that you could possibly imagine. And they would talk about it in music, become famous, and get the hell away from those situations. To me, Chief Keef is the perfect example. He was in O-Block around all of that shit, got famous through his music, and got the hell out of there. And then, to be honest, I would say King Von is the polar opposite. He was in those situations as deep as you could possibly be. He became a millionaire off music, and he couldn't get away from it. He kept trying to stoke the gang war. He, allegedly was putting money on people's heads. And in many ways, like, Von is kind of the antithesis of what I actually think that, like, the positive side of hip-hop culture should be about. It should be about getting away from that stuff and making great art. But that's the way I see it. And I admit that, look, I make videos and I try and be as honest as I can, but I don't know everything about the situations that people go through in the hood. And, people say I'm a culture vulture. I would disagree with that. But at the same time, like, I really don't mean any harm. And I honestly, like, I admire and I respect and I have sympathy for the struggle that these artists that I look up to went through. But, I'd love to know from you, like, what do you think I can do, or what do you think, like, people in my position could do to, like, help or, like, promote more positivity in Chicago? Because I don't take any pleasure in the violence.
So,
shit, like, for real.
I just want to say, like, I never had no type of hate or nothing towards you, right? I really respect the craft and everything. Something that I would like more would be to just have more facts, get more in tune with the people. That means something to the culture when you talk to us. You know what I'm saying? Just going off everything that's out there in the universe, it upsets us. It makes us feel a certain type of way. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you afraid of us? Like, you love everything black, but you ain't talk to not one black person. So it make us look at you a little different. Like, just reach out to the people when you do these documentaries. Try and reach out to people. You can send people a couple of dollars. It'll make it all different. And guess what? People still gonna complain, but it'll be better because you'll have some real facts. You'll have some real stories. You know what I'm saying? That's why you'll have somebody like me saying something about it, because it's like, man, this dude just got all this shit off fucking Instagram and some rap songs. That's bullshit to me. That's why I say it's cap. You know what I'm saying? I ain't get on here to tear you down. I'm not no debater or none of that shit. I'm not Van. He great at this. You know what I'm saying? I can interview people. I'm good at that. But I just wanted to hear your side, and I really wanted the streets to hear your side, because I'm part of the streets. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of dudes from the streets. They tuned in right now. They want to hear what you had to say. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you. I ain't here to take you down or none of that. I don't want to see you not eat none of that. You know what I'm saying? But I do appreciate you explaining yourself. It meant a lot to me. You know.
Word. That's what we're here for. I do want to ask. I want to follow up with one thing with Ross. A vulture. When people say culture vulture, I think it's an interesting term. A vulture is an animal that scavenges on something dead. It swoops in when something is dead and it eats off the bones of something. Right. So the term culture vulture is literally one of the most sinister things that anyone can be called, because it implies that you're eating a culture that's in peril, that's struggling for its life, that you're trying to get the meat off of it. If you are in fact not a culture vulture, which once again, I watch your videos. I don't think that I think you're a culture vulture. I've never thought about it, but I don't think you are. But if you're not a culture vulture, what would you say that Trap Lord Ross does to add to hip hop culture? You talked deeply about how you like hip hop, what the effect that it's had on your life. Like if I were pushing back on you, I would say Trap Lord Ross doesn't break any artists. Trap Lord Ross doesn't necessarily promote any music. It seems as if, just go with me here, that someone could make the argument that you are picking off the bones of hip hop, that you're highlighting things that are either necessary, negative or sensational. Now, I find them to be. I mean, I think a lot of people do that. But what would you say to people that said, well, by definition, you are a vulture because there's not much there that enhances the culture, or you don't add to it?
Yeah,
Do you think that's a
I
fair
think it's a
assessment?
fair assessment, because I mean, you also made a show, right, Hip Hop Homicides, where you talk about these things, and I assume that your intention with that is to kind of contribute to the conversation around these topics, these very important situations and stories in the hip hop history. And the way I kind of see it is that, like, yeah, sure thing.
Can I add? Can I say something about that show? Show was about victims. So for Hip Hop Homicides, and just so we clarify, so for Hip Hop Homicides, I sat down with 8 mothers who got to tell the story of their sons and daughters. So the show that we made, in my opinion, and I'm not differentiated between what you do, the show that we made, the skin in the game that we had was, when we sat down to make the show, was to examine the dysfunction in these different situations that lead to these outcomes, and share energy with the families and the victims of the people where they're from that this happened to. Like, so for me, it was going to talk to Vaughn's mother. I was with Duck's mom. I was with XXXTentacion's mom, Chinx's mom, Soulja Slim's mom, sitting down there and hoping that everybody out there can see the effects of what this dysfunction actually does to people. So as we look through those cases, we definitely tried to see, okay, how did all of this happen? But the most important part of the show for me was to talk directly, to be on O Block, to be on 63rd, to be in Chicago with Dave, and just see how this is actually fucking people's lives.
I think it's just it's really a difference of, as far as like how you want to approach the project. Because obviously the counter argument to that would be, well, you're exploiting these grieving families for people's entertainment, which I don't believe. But I think it's a difference in how you want to approach it. I really admire what you did with Hip Hop Homicides. And as Dave said, it does make a difference when you go and speak to people in person and you get those original first-person perspectives. Now, sometimes those perspectives are a little bit biased as well. But my approach when it comes to...
No, not sometimes.
Well, yeah. But like...
Go for it,
the difference with me, one, I mean, I would love to actually go to Chicago and speak to some people. I mean, you actually, that's something I'm kind of pursuing in the background. But at the same time, my style, when I started this, I didn't really have the means to fly out to Chicago and speak to people. My thing was I just sit in a room, and I give my take on the hip hop history stories that I think are really important. But jump forward to now, when I'm covering more serious topics, you know, I don't make jokes and little wisecracks like I used to in my videos. But now I take these topics very seriously. And I do actually try and capture the essence of what you're saying. Like, for example, when you look at the video that I did on FBG Duck, I had a whole chapter where I kind of analyzed, you know, the statements that his mother had made and the experience that his mother had had. Admittedly, I didn't go and speak to her firsthand because that's just not my style. I'm more of a researcher rather than like an interviewer. But at the same time, I would say like,
Sure.
I try and put myself into people's shoes. Like when you watch my videos, I try and take on the perspective of like, I say, you know, why was King Von like this? Or like, why were the guys that killed FBG Duck driven to this? Well, they grew up losing their fathers or their friends to the gun in front of them, right? This drove the way that they were conditioned to think. It pushed them towards murder or situations where they would take somebody else's life. So I think the way that I try and not be seen as a vulture is I try and provide like a nuanced perspective as to like the wider societal reasons for these things. And I think if you want like the perfect example of what would be like vulturing the culture, you've got these channels like Hip Hop Daily or like, you know, these sort of channels where it's like, you can tell that they've just paid a guy on Fiverr to just find out all the King Von info that they can, throw it into a video, get a guy to record a voiceover and put it out. Like those people, I think they're just harvesting the culture. You know, there's no face to it. There's no nuance. It's just who's got bodies, sensationalize it, chuck a thumbnail with the writing's blood and throw it out there. And that's not what I'm on. Like I put my face in my videos. Yeah, I'm not the guy you might expect to be interested in these sorts of things. But like, I stand on my shit. Like, I put myself in the videos. I give my perspective, and I really do try and say, like, if you watch a lot of my recent videos that are on murder and death and gang situations, like, I will always try in those videos to say, what are the reasons for this? Like, this needs to stop. How can we get a greater understanding? What could the city do to improve this? And I personally think that kind of like is what sets me apart from those people. And like, I'm never gonna, if someone thinks I'm a culture vulture, I'm never gonna convince them otherwise, I don't think, with my words. But like, I feel with my actions deep down, like, I know I actually give a shit. Like when somebody says to me, like, you know, these situations are fucked up and people are hurting over the people that have died, like, bro, this stuff affects me, you know. I don't take it lightly that I spent, you know, 2 months looking into these situations with King Von and all these people that passed away. And, you know, it might be hard for some people to believe, but I do put myself in the shoes of you know, the families of the victims. And admittedly, yeah, I haven't gone out and spoken to them. And maybe that would be something in future that I could do, because I think that would be an important project. I just don't know how to approach it. But like, I put myself in those shoes, and I think about the victims of, you know, of people that King Von allegedly killed. You know, I often think to myself, like, how must it have felt to be the mother of somebody that King Von allegedly killed, and then this guy is on TV talking about he's got 7 bodies. You know, in my video, there's a screenshot from, I think it's the sister of Malcolm Stuckey, one of King Von's, you know, alleged victims, where he actually ended up beating the case, and he later rapped that they killed one of the witnesses. But like, you know, there's a social media post from the sister of Malcolm Stuckey saying, I'm disgusted that this guy, he beats the murder of my brother, and he's now out here making songs. Like, you know, I see something like that, and that I feel the hurt, but I also feel like that's important to be put out there, because you've had, you know, how long was Von's career? 2-3 years of this guy running around saying he's got 7 bodies and he's smoking Tuka and he's smoking this person and that person. And there's never been a voice given to, like you say, the families of these people that were his alleged victims. And I think, not to go too hard at anyone, but like, I think it is kind of disrespectful to those people that are grieving their loss, for people to run around saying Von did nothing wrong and he didn't kill anyone, where fine, he wasn't convicted, but like, by his own words, he was a multiple killer. And no one's been found, you know, no one's been caught for some of these murders that he was alleged to have done. And it makes you wonder how the families feel, and kind of what the knock-on effect of what he did is. So it's sort of like interesting that people kind of focus so much heat my way, but it's almost like there's zero accountability for Von himself. Fine, he wasn't convicted of the crimes, but he became a millionaire off bragging about them. And I even look at someone like Lil Durk, and, you know, I sometimes wonder how he sleeps at night, making songs like Should Have Ducked, making, you know, making songs like Should Have Ducked. No, is that an unfair thing to say?
Right. No, go for it. No, look, go for it. Like, have your say. First of all, I will say this. Ross did reach out to me and asked me to connect him with some people so that he could get to people in Chicago, so he could go to Chicago and talk to some people. And we did that. Like, I put him with some people, And Ross does plan to go down to Chicago. Hopefully, when you go to Chicago, you can stop by Dave's podcast and you guys can talk. What I don't want to do is insult or implicate anybody else that doesn't have to do with what we're talking about in this situation. By the way, Ak, if you want to join, send the invite and I'll put you on. I know Dave probably got things to go. He can't be here for forever. So I feel you, Ross. I feel you, Ross. I just don't want to. I don't want to throw Dirk in this for like no reason. Okay, like you know what I'm saying. I don't want to throw Dirk in this for no reason. But look, to be honest with you, like let me tell you why I find your videos valuable, and I'm going to ask all the relevant questions. I'm going to be honest about something for something right now. The reason why I look at you and had to really legislate within myself your content and who you are, I'm gonna straight up be honest. It's because you're white. It's because you're white and you're not from here. So let's be honest and talk like big dick motherfuckers for a second. Like it's because you're white. And let me tell you how that reflects how I looked at that and why I had to. And I've told Ag before, I was like, yo, the videos that he makes are really good. But me being from Baton Rouge, right? I watch all kinds of things on Baton Rouge. Like I'm into all of this shit. It's like true crime to me, swamp stories, whoever, all of that stuff about what's in Baton Rouge, right? And sometimes like I hear people talking about like my city, where I'm from, and the things that went on there, and I'm like, fuck. They talking about it like it's Call of Duty. Like it's like a real TV show to them. And I'm thinking, well, God damn it, like I knew some of these niggas. And I knew some of their older brothers, and I knew some of the people, and like it's a lot of shit that went on. And to see somebody that's like kind of not from it, have an opinion on it, at first it's jarring. And it's jarring for a lot of people. At first it's like, what the fuck is this motherfucker on? What is he trying to do? And it's our pain and suffering, which is cyclical and needs to come with some accountability for how we're changing our neighborhoods and who we're holding accountable as activists and politics and all of that stuff. All of that stuff is real. It just kind of seems like, okay, well, we got all of this stuff to deal with. And on top of that, we have more. And on top of that, we have somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game or doesn't know what it's like to kind of live in a place like that, just getting paid off of it. Now, for me, I don't make excuses for motherfuckers doing dumb shit. I'm too old. I'm 43 on Sunday, and y'all need to get it right. So I get a better understanding of certain things, some information that I might not have had by watching your videos, because they're very deep and detailed. However, that is not a substitute for me reaching out to people like Dave, for me reaching out to the other people that I made in Chicago to understand not what might have happened, but how it feels. Because like at the end of the day, and this is for everybody, the hip hop homicides as well, and TMZ before that. It's not like I've been somebody that's never been in a place that's been criticized. But I'm saying, but what I'm saying is, sometimes with what we're talking about, like we feel the loss of the people that have been in our neighborhoods. We feel the people that are going to be killed. We know that it's coming. We interviewed FBG Cash when we did Hip Hop Homicides, and
rest in peace to Cash.
Cool guy, funny guy. He's dead.
Yeah, man. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace to Cash. He's dead. He's dead. He didn't even live to the premiere of the show. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, and I'm like, yo, man. Yeah. I called Dave when that happened. I'm like, yo, man, what the fuck, bro? Like, and I don't know what he had done. And even while when we did that episode, I politely asked Dave to move a hat that had a diss on. I politely asked Cash to move a hat that had a diss on it, because I don't want to be in the middle of all of that stuff that's going on. But I think to distill everything that I'm saying right now, I think it comes from sometimes people in the Black community or from different parts of the Black community, the feeling that our pain is being exploited, the feeling that the dysfunction that's being done to us intentionally is somebody else's entertainment, even if it's ours. as well. That feeling is what you get sometimes, and it's not always fair. I'll just be real with you, Ross. It's not always fair, but I'll be honest with you. You up for the conversation, and as we talk, I always have felt like your interest in these issues were from a genuine place, and the reality of it is that that not everybody is going to agree, but you
For real, man. I appreciate both of you. Like, even, there were a lot of things me and Dave disagreed on, but there are also things that we agreed on. And I think that we all agree that, what's going on in some of these places is not good. I'd love to know if there's a way that I can contribute positively. I'm open to any kind of discussion. So, I appreciate there's a positive side and there's something positive to come out of this. But at the same time, like, I feel like I've gotten maybe more of a bad rap than I deserve recently. But, like, I'm open to any kind of conversation. So, I really appreciate this. And, Dave, for you to, like, come on and actually have an open conversation with me and not kind of just shout me down, I really appreciate that, because I think we're gaining some understanding. And, maybe I could come to Chicago and meet you. There are a lot of people in my DM saying they're going to smoke me if I come to Chicago. So
hey, man,
I'll
be honest about that, man. That can happen. Me and Van talked about this before. So, Chicago a tricky place, man. You just got to be careful with the people that you deal with. Backdoor is a sport in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? And people would love to put you on the documentary. Just know that. The same way they love to put Akademiks on one.
Jesus.
Bro, I know it's true.
All right. They was asking
I'm going to be honest with you. I enjoyed this debate. I'm going to be honest, though, because I've been in a bunch of these before and I've never shied away. I think the context and the pretext that y'all were debating on was just like, I warned Trap Lord Ross, but I was actually wrong. There's like zero way to defend Vaughn in the majority of things you talk about. You're either going to have a bad faith debate about Vaughn or be completely delusional, or you're going to have to be forced to be acknowledge certain uncomfortable truths. And to be honest, like, salute to my man Dave, but like, the moment I heard he said, yo, maybe when Vaughn was talking about bodies, he was talking about the chicks he smashed. I said, oh, we got it. It's like, that's being willfully ignorant. It's being willfully ignorant about if people in the UK could read through and decode what this person's admitting, and it's also matching up with actual crimes. Brother, you can't tell me you're on the streets of Chicago and you're thinking you're playing games. So now we're not even having a debate. Now we're not having a debate. Now we're having a okay. And by the way, this is the easiest thing. They do it to me too. When we can't debate you, we're gonna just say you're the police. We're gonna call you cops.
How can I be a street nigga and get on here and say he bodied somebody? So I'm supposed to be like, oh yeah, he killed the motherfucker. When you in the streets, you don't tell it. You don't talk about no shit that's in the streets. You don't get on the internet and talk about that. That's where I come from. So I would never get on here and mention nothing about nobody bodies or nothing. Even if I was right there when they murdered the motherfucker, I'm not going to speak about it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The conversation is disingenuous because you come into the conversation saying that what Trap Lord Ross did and framing Vaughn as a serial killer is unfair, when in reality, Vaughn is not the victim. The 7 people or however many that he may have been accused of or to be the suspect of being killed or killed, those are the victims. So you're
he was the victim.
The victim is not Vaughn.
Can I be real with you though? If you watch Ross's video, it doesn't come off like that. And this to me, I'm gonna ask all of the relevant questions, but I've watched the evolution of Trap Lord Ross's video from the time that he was painting his face like 6ix9ine to the time to where I actually believe that he's become one of the most thorough, one of the most digestible, and one of the most noteworthy documentarians, period. And I tell people this all the time. If you watch the whole video, there's no way that you come away with the idea that King Von
a victim of life and circumstances. And
that's what I mean to say. And that's what I mean to say. Like there's just let me finish acting. I'm not gonna talk this, but the whole beginning of the video is interrogation and an explanation of the circumstances of King Von's life that might have led him to becoming some of the things that people think
No,
that
absolutely. Most people that come from, any impoverished background or any background or area where there's a lot of violence, they're probably a victim of that. That's not what, obviously if you watch the whole thing, you saw somebody who kind of maniacally enjoyed the fact that, he had the power to kill and that he did kill and bragged about other killings and then bragged about inflicting hurt and pain. That's a little bit different. But, even beyond that, that's what I was just saying about even this debate. I'm like, if you're going into it saying that, everything was wrong, I think that's also being not only disingenuous to, like, we got common sense here. We're not gonna, like, we don't have to be police, you're right. We don't have to solve crimes. But if a dude is basically just giving us all the clues and it matches up with everything, like, come on. We don't gotta admit it, but it has to be understood at least. So then when you start moving the conversation, and by the way, I've been in a bunch of these conversations, it always stops here. My approach, which is a little bit different than Traplo Ross's approach, is I'll admit some culpability. And what the culpability I've always admitted is that, by the way, what I do in Traplo Ross does is slightly different. When I did the war in Chirac, I've always told people I would never do it again, only because I did it in a satirical approach. I gave nicknames, and some of those things, when dealing with a lot of pain and hurt, you should probably remove. Okay, so I've always said that wasn't the best way to do it. Right at that time, I felt it was. In hindsight, I would have done it that way. But I still defend, whether it's me, Traplo Ross, or anybody else. Like, you got to realize, like, King Von made a whole a career worth tens of millions of dollars off of these crimes and bragging about all the violence he did. You can't tell me that because he's entitled to that, the victims don't get any type of, by the way, imagine being a victim or a family of one of the victims, and the dude who allegedly did something to your relative is the biggest rapper from your neighborhood. There is no payback for that. They don't get anything. So it's kind of like, it's odd when y'all point out, like, yo, you're not from Chicago. How could you talk about it? You're from the UK. How could you talk about it? Well, it's always thinking about the person who's probably already inflicting all this violence. Nobody, like, the whole conversation we having, it would be different if we start talking about the 7 people, right? But most of it is about Von's image. Did he do it? Did he not do it? Is he charged? Is he not? What about the actual people who clearly were victims? Okay, what about the people who he built a career off bragging about them being dead? What about that? Right? Because there's a bunch of those people. Are we ever going to talk about that? And then the last thing, because I want to just suck up all the air in the room, the last thing always comes to this. I love these conversations, and I always get to I always like to join them, because I want to show that we need to progress. Like, for example, if we're all, and that's what I was saying about being disingenuous to a conversation, if no one's willing to concede, we're just going to be here just like talking at like brick walls. The reason why I always say, okay, I'll admit that, the way I handled the media for that time in the war in Chirac wasn't the best, is because I'm hoping other people are going to say, well, these things aren't as well conducive to trying to stop the violence, but no one stops there. People usually lump all the blame on the media, right? It's people like me or Traplo Ross why people are sliding. Are you kidding me? You tell me that when Lil Durk drops like 15 names and is put on his Instagram story, actual real situations that usually people like me or Traplo Ross, like, he's naming people we don't know. We got to Google. Like, we're like, the funny thing is, people think that Traplo Ross has like a PI, like a private investigator, or like some type of like cooperating in Chicago. Yo, he's Googling. He went through a Twitter feed. You know what I mean? Like, he's looking up Chicago Tribune articles. It's not that hard. You know what I mean? Like, these coded messages to think that crime is contained within a community, and that if anybody else decodes these simplistic ways of how, people are kind of glorifying crime, you know what I mean? Like, these dudes are talking about scoreboards all the time. Check this. Like, come on, if somebody else who has a brain to say, oh, they're talking about killing each other, they're not the problem. The niggas killing each other are the problem. That's what I think. Here, again, I know I said it was the last point, but I just want us to further the debate. So if you think Traplo Ross is wrong for making this video, I would ask you this. Do you think Lil Durk is wrong for continually making music, stoking a fire, and also laughing at people who died? If you do think that, because I think we should come to some type of agreement, right? because I've seen somebody even write an article recently. They're like, yo, Akademiks still has the War in Chirac channel. Would you then say that all music that stokes the fire, or YouTube videos, or YouTube commentators who are instigated according to you, would you say all of that should be banned, not only by whether it's YouTube, maybe platforms, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon? Also, should we then hold the labels accountable? They should not be giving out tens of millions of dollars that's funding black genocide. Do we ever get to there, or we just stop at Trap Lord Ross made a 3-hour video, and you know what? Yes, clearly it's bringing a problem. I look at it as it brings it into focus, right? And I don't think it brings it into focus just for the aspect of like glorifying it or some voyeuristic like weird shit. I think it also brings it into focus to say, while you guys laugh and dance to this drill music, that sounds really good. Should Have Ducked is one of my favorite songs. I hate to say what it is. That shit is celebrating Black Death. So what do you want to do? Are you going to then approach the mayor? And I'm not talking about you specifically. I'm talking about us collectively. Are we then going to start approaching the mayor?
Real quick, I want to get.
So
Let
My bad.
get in there.
So AK, I want to say this, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay,
you
okay.
mentioned Dirt.
Know y'all being-
When Dirt put these lyrics out here to the world. When Dirt put those lyrics out there and people sliding, he a street nigga. When Trap Ross or you start speaking on it, it's like, these niggas nerds. That's how the streets looking at it. And it's like, when y'all create these videos and niggas slide to y'all videos, street niggas like, damn, y'all slide to these goofies? Y'all listen to the DJ Akademiks? Yeah, you gonna slide to Dirt, it's different. He a street nigga, so it's like, it's a disconnect there because it's like, y'all don't understand us and we don't understand y'all. These niggas, they really in the midst of this shit and you not. They not laughing and making no jokes when they slap. Y'all laughing, making money when people die. So it's a big difference. So we looking at DJ Akademiks like, you ain't even been in the middle of this shit. You don't even understand none of this shit that's going on. You making all the videos, you talking all this gangster shit, because I see you talk about a lot of motherfuckers, and you talk a lot of gangster shit, but I know you ain't no gangster. And that'd be weird to niggas that's from the streets, that's really killers, that's really out here, when they hear somebody that don't do this, talk like that. So it's like...
Hey, brother. Hey, wait, hold on. Not to cut you off.
All right, so hold on. Hey. Real quick. I want to make sure that something happens here.
Mm-hmm.
The three people on this live right now, I fuck with. I get all kinds of shit for fucking with that, but I've been fucking with that. I fuck with Dave. I fuck with Ross. I want to make sure that in the midst of this conversation, that we maintain a certain level of maturity, respect, and reverence for each other. All right. I just want to make sure Ross is in England. He came here to do this. Dave is in Chicago. Mac is in. I'm not gonna drop his location because he got too many options. I'm in Los Angeles. Oh, I'm in Los Angeles. I just want to make sure that we all maintain that level of respect for one another. Go ahead. I see
No.
the fucking wheels in your mind turning.
I hear the point he makes, and I understand the perspective, right? So, we're all kind of like trading ideas, and that's why I'm glad we're all keeping it respectful, because, at the end of the day, I'm not going to say there's either side right or not. There's just a lot of different perspectives here, right? People looking at it differently. What I would say to him is this, right? I would understand and agree with the perspective if it was like, for example, there's killing happening everywhere. People aren't reporting on all killings and the nuances and the stories behind most of these killings for the most part, at least hip hop journalists, until multi-million-dollar careers are being created from the violence. So as you say, they're in the middle of it, I would also ask you, do you believe that? Because the majority, like obviously there's a portion of drill music that really is because you're there, but a lot of drill music is because that's the content that sells. I don't think Dirk's reality is that, yo, niggas better duck. I don't think that's his reality currently. Like, Like Dirk is a very wealthy guy. But that's the music that stokes a particular passion, even in people like me, right? Where even if you've never lived it, that music is great. Like you love it. So again, everybody plays upon it for business and to make millions of dollars, including the record labels, including the streaming platforms we're all on. Let's just be honest. So to say that, oh, the people who are rapping about it, they're only doing it because they're in it, that's cap. You get what I mean? These dudes are rapping about it, maybe initially. Like, you know, when you hear the story of, like, how, say, Chief Keef made his first hit, they're like, yo, at least that's what the story I heard. Like, yo, after one day they did some shit, you know, he just hopped on the mic and he was just trying to do something. That sounded real organic. But that's far removed from what drill music is actually now. Drill music is a billion-dollar business, not only for the rappers themselves, the billion-dollar business for the labels and the owners that sign those checks. And people know promoting black genocide, whether you are still in it, whether you've ever lived it, or whether you, on a voyeuristic level, you know, you have friends that live it or you've been around it, it is very lucrative. So for you to say, hey, there's still a difference. And by the way, I've always said this. Trap Lord Ross video has 2 million views. If you think about a song like Should Have Ducked, it's platinum. If the equivalent of that in views is 1 billion. So when you say you're the problem, well, what about a song that actually names the person and basically taunts him? Well, I always say the people who are upset at Trap Lord Ross or DJ Akademiks, they're always quiet when it comes to the rappers. They never say, hey, we should boycott this song. Hey, how about we stop? Hey, how about we write a letter, or how about, there's many ways to do it. If y'all write a letter right down to the CEO of Spotify or Apple, but I'm not a hater, so I'm not going to be promoting that. But according to the people who don't like what me and Trap Lord Ross do and will want it to stop, if you would want all that type of stuff to stop across the board, you can easily contact Apple to say, hey, that song you playlisted is actually promoting the death of this person and blah, blah, blah. But nobody actually goes that far. That's what I'm saying. These conversations, on face value, they look good, but it does nothing because we stop short of addressing any problems. And by the way, I'm not saying the problem is Dirk or anyone else who does drill music. It's systemic issues, but we never get that far because you know what? We got a white dude here who seems like he's not in the culture, making a video that's very viral about our culture. We could just stop by saying he's the problem.
So Ross, you want to jump in? I got something to say, but I'm gonna make sure.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think the one argument that a lot of people kind of really gloss over when it comes to this stuff is like people want to blame me, but then they just completely skip over the labels. And there's been a lot of hate for labels, not just for like promoting the gang violence, but also like kind of promoting all of this drug use and death, you know, whether it's the Juice WRLDs or the Futures. When it comes to labels, they really don't seem to care about, you know, whatever they're putting out, whether it's the black community or just the music listening community in general. You know, the record labels don't seem to care whether they're telling a whole generation of people to listen, to take perks, to sit lean, to kill their ops. You know, these are major record labels, billion-dollar corporations backing this stuff and pushing it. And you know what really, this was crazy because after I released my Bond documentary, I had a VP from Empire, his label, DM me saying he was going to fly to London and beat my face in. So you got record label execs sliding about this stuff, bro. I couldn't believe it when I saw that shit. But like, honestly, the labels need to.
And by the way, talk about being disingenuous, right? I'll give you some real shit that's actually happened, right? If we talk about instigating or fanning or fuel, I heard Dave mention, hey, sometimes there's tension, and actually, if people just diffuse it or don't talk about it, it goes away. Okay, I'll give an example. All the niggas in the Bronx that's beefing doing Bronx drill, Capital signed a hold of them. All of them. Everyone. Okay? King Fly got some. Here's the thing. When a record label basically then signs everybody doing the same type of music beefing with each other, and they give them checks, they're all now iced out. Do you think it incentivizes them to say, let me stop dissing my ops and go sing to a girl? Or does it say, let me diss my ops some more?
Well, okay. So let's distill this and roll it back a little bit. All right. So I think we're actually talking about two different things here. Because if we talk about the crux of an issue, which is dysfunction in specific Black American neighborhoods, then there are all kinds of reasons why that dysfunction exists. If we're talking about the glorification of that dysfunction, that's a separate structural entity onto its own. And let me tell you what I mean by that. A corporation doesn't have any feelings. Like, this is something that was expressed when the baby got in trouble. And people were wondering, well, why do those corporations, like, continue to play music, the baby's music, when it's talking about Black death, but if the baby talks about the LGBTQ plus community, then he's canceled. The difference is what the audience will accept. The audience will accept a specific type of music because, frankly, they're used to it, right? An audience, the LGBTQ plus community will not accept that type of conversation about them for an artist that does that because they feel like it makes them unsafe. In the communities that we're talking about, being unsafe is kind of a part of the theme, right? So music that is unsafe or music that promotes something that's already going on isn't shocking to a lot of people. Now, let's say we put that to the side. The question then becomes, well, who should make a lot of money off that? That's kind of what we're talking about. Like, who should make a lot of money off dysfunction that already exists? That exists before I was born, and I'm the oldest guy on this call, before Dave was born, before Akademiks was born, before Trap Lord Ross was born. Doesn't matter who makes that type of situation into something where they can profit off of the Black death. Now, if you're saying right now that the labels should be responsible for that, they should. And they should be responsible for it because we say so. The labels should be responsible for it because we say that this is exporting the image of Black people that we don't put up with, that we don't like. The reality is that we don't really care about that because the drug dealers and killers and thugs, these are people that are in our families. These are people that we have to love. These are things and stuff that we're used to. It's a separate societal issue, right, in terms of this. And we're going to go deep and talk about why these neighborhoods are like this. Then we're going to go around. That's a conversation that nobody really wants to have because most people aren't equipped to have it. What we're talking about now is, okay, who gets to make a video about this? Who gets to make fun of this? Who gets to joke about this? And we can talk about what Dirk and them do and what the rappers do all we want. The reality is this. People are going to feel a way if you either make light or sensationalize the pain that exists in their neighborhood and you are not from there. If I made a video right now, a comical video about the Holocaust, or if I made a video right now about how badass Hitler was, all right, the people who have to live with the legacy of that are going to say, even though it happened, we all know that it happened, it's clear that it happened, they're going to have a problem with it. So the responsibility and the question becomes this. And this is a question that we've all had to ask ourselves. Me and the way that I cover things. I'm sure Ak in the way that he covers things. I'm sure Ross in the way that he covers things. When we are making whatever we're making, talking to whomever we're talking to, doing whatever we're doing, forget about Dirk. Forget about Vaughn. Let's not play the what about game. What about the rappers? What about this? What about that? What is your responsibility? What is Ross's responsibility? What is Ak's responsibility? What is Dave's responsibility? What is Van's responsibility? And if you say, I don't have a responsibility because the rappers don't have a responsibility, that's fine. I personally think that that's actually not taking responsibility or for who you are. I think that's what about it, or what about these other niggas that's doing it. So what I'm saying is, and you learned this from the war in Chirac. Forget about everything else. People are talking about whatever. What do you
Hold
feel
on.
like your
Hold on. I'm glad you mentioned that because you're right. Like, that's very important. But as I said, you can't. That's why these debates, I kind of almost don't even participate in because they're all disingenuous. You're gonna have people who are gonna just blame you for murders. Oh no, they're only sliding for you. Oh, you made a video. Oh, they're only the violence went up when I stopped doing war in Chirac. What I'm trying to say is that when we're gonna have people that are gonna be willfully ignorant to basically almost deny that there's really issues there, and just point at you covering it, or even if you like they felt you were stoking it, they feel like you're the biggest problem. like I think that's problematic. But not only that, as we talk about maybe like who's the person who should least likely speak on these things. Again, let's go back to the victims. Those 7 people who died, or anyone who died in that video, do you think they are more offended by Trap Lord Ross's video or that King Von? This all matters. You have to also think about it because we all glorify music. Music is a form of art that, if we could say the most heinous thing, music and comedy, there are 2 forms of art where any type of thing that happens, there's like we all glorify, we dance to it, we dance to some of the most hated songs. But we then have some type of morality when we see a documentary. Oh, why'd you make this documentary? Maybe you're fucked up. Huh? Like, did you not watch the thing? Maybe the guy who killed 7 people was fucked up. Maybe that's what he's trying to bring awareness to. Like, how does this happen in American City? But nobody wants to talk about that. You want to talk about, oh, you're the white guy, or you're the guy not from Chicago.
But the reality is that, like, you talk about that all the time. It's not about what people like. Like there are people.
They blame me for they blame me for all the murders in Chicago since 2012.
Stop.
No.
Have you ever been to Chicago before? Then how do you know? So
you're doing a disingenuous shit. Are you saying how do I know what?
No. So listen. So how do you know who's talking about? When I was in Chicago, when I was there, I met with dozens of people who their entire life is dedicated to stopping violence in Chicago. So I'm not blaming you. Wait a second. Let me first of all chill. I'm not blaming you or Ross or anybody else for the violence in Chicago. What I'm saying is, even if you are not the reason why the violence in any place is happening, which you're not, that doesn't absolve you from responsibility in the way that you would either cover it or talk about it.
I agree with that.
Forget about as a content creator. Right. So that's all that I'm saying. I'm not saying no one can credibly or intellectually blame you for the violence in Chicago, or blame Ross, or blame me for celebrities fucking up the whole time I was at TMZ. However, I do say there is a way to cover something. I think nutritious and responsible, and then there's a way that's not.
Oh, okay.
I agree, but when I'm asking him though is whether or not my thing with Ross, me and Ross talked about this. My thing is whether or not the way that he went about it, if he was willing to listen to any criticism about it, and he did, and he was. Dave, go ahead.
I feel like Act don't want to take, and I ain't coming for you, Act. I just feel like you don't want to take no ownership with it. We in Chicago feel like you report all the bad shit, and I know it sounds so simple. You report all the bad shit, but you never report nothing good. Like, you don't fuck with Chicago. That'd be the whole issue with Chicago and Akademiks. Because you'll post, say Zoo, you'll post Zoo getting locked up with 300 fucking guns, but you won't post his record up there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you love Chicago so much, but you don't never post none of our artists. You'll never post if Dirk got a fucking shoe drive in Chicago. This is stuff that the streets that we be wanting y'all to respect as well. You know what I'm saying? And I know to you, it might not seem like shit, because you might be like, man, fuck them niggas. I ain't never got to deal with them niggas. But in reality, it means something to the city. That's part of your giving back. When sometimes if you be like, you know what? It's a buzz and artists in Chicago, I'm going to post them. That make us start looking at you a little different.
Okay, so let me respond to that. First of all, that's absolutely infactual. That's just incorrect, actually. So it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Dirk did a give back. Definitely posted on my page. Dirk, anytime does Dirk do, matter of fact, I think even one of my latest posts, I'm like, yo, Dirk is trying to save people. Like, that's kind of been one of the themes of been saying. We're definitely posting it. Now, when you talk about newer artists, and here's where most of these debates get to, people feel because I cover Chicago, I'm in everybody from Chicago. Here's the thing.
You are.
No, I'm
you
not.
speaking on street shit.
No, listen.
You speaking on street shit. So you
here's the thing.
Now. Those artists. You're part of us. That's how we feel, bro.
Those artists that I covered their lives, whether it be Lil Reese, whether it be Lil J. Those artists, of course, I'm indebted to. And by the way, I cover all of those artists still. Now, some random dude in Chicago now, what the hell do I owe
No,
that
if
dude
you speak
if
on
he's
some
trying to get on
murders
the
or
rap
some
game?
shit with him that's negative, shout him out on something good too. That's all we saying. Don't always just be so negative.
That's always been the hold on. That's always been the case. If you go back, and Chief Keef himself, because he DM'd me when I stopped doing it, saying that was always the source of, yeah, I do cover some of the things that might not be the best for your image, but all of that is also help propelling the music. Like, it's kind of also like a two-faced type of thing, right? Like, when it comes to, like, say, 600 Breezy and also Lil Reese, right? At first, they were like, oh, shit, he's calling us nicknames. Then they named their mixtape the nicknames. So, again, all of that helped really the image that created the brand that also promoted all the damn music. I'm sorry to say. I posted all their stuff. I still do. I still post G Herbo. I still post. Now, here's the thing. Let's extrapolate from those guys I covered. I covered a finite amount of people. There ain't nobody who I was covering, or let's get off the people who I was covering. If I never covered you, and because you were just born in Chicago, it's not like somebody like, oh, yo, Akademiks owe you some promotion, like this is reparations. There ain't no reparations for like the entire city. You get what I mean? Like the dudes who I covered, I do believe because not only their stories were very impactful in having an audience look at it through my platform, of course I should support anything they got going on. Shit, everybody, I talk to famous Snakes all the time. I covered them a lot. I said, yo, whatever you got going on, let's run the promo. I tell them all the time. When Dirk got dropped back in 2014 or whatever it was, he was on Def Jam. Dirk used to hit me personally. Yo, I see you streaming on Twitch. Let's play video games because right now nobody's promoting my music. I always support it. Those are the people who I cover. Now, you can't just name some random dude who I never covered at all and be like, yo, he's from Chicago. You just owe us. You know what I mean? I feel like that's disingenuous.
Can I ask you one question? Because it's your platform. You do whatever. Do you feel like you owe anything to the Black community?
I mean, overall, yes. Like, but that's kind of also a weird question. Hold on, that's a weird question.
Just real quick.
Hold on.
Before you go, what do you feel? No. Hold on. Wait. Just wait. I just want to real quick. Okay. What do you feel like that is? Okay. What does DJ Akademiks?
So first and foremost, I'm gonna tell you why it's a weird question because I'm Black. So basically saying you owe the Black community is also saying you owe the community that like it's basically saying you almost owe yourself as well. You get what I mean? Because I'm in the community. It's not like when you usually ask that question. That's what I'm saying. That's a weird question to ask. You usually ask that question. It's fair to say, do you owe Chicago? I'm not from Chicago. But if you're like, if you owe the Black community, okay.
No. I know. But okay. So let me just real quick. It's only gonna take a second. Like what we're talking about, if you are white and you're looking at what's happening in Chicago, not just in Chicago, but anywhere else, there's a disconnection that you could feel to what's going on there, to where you would feel like I can cover that or do whatever and whatever I want, and it doesn't really matter. Case in point, TMZ. Harvey covers everybody kind of the same, but he doesn't understand that there are specific sensitivities when Black people are involved. So the people that were in the room, me, Raquel, now Lauren, they're the ones that have to say, hey, there's a specific way that this community kind of needs to be dealt with. So the reason why I would ask you that is because it would seem to me that if you're talking about how you would cover someplace where Black people are in peril or in turmoil, the question would be, does anything about who you are say, all right, let me look at this.
And by the way,
and when
I understand the question.
Hold on. When I ask you, I know, but let me finish. Saying that you're Black, you being Black is the reason why you would feel the need to have some type of connection or owe somebody in some way. That's the reason why. That's the thing that you'd say, okay, or not even in the way you cover them, but even in the way you listen to them. Forget about covering, because you can make mistakes covering people, and we all have. But when they have a complaint, or when they have a correction, or when there's something that they want to say to you, the way that you would listen to them might be different if you feel some type of cultural or
Okay,
community
so
kinship.
I'll answer which is the most obvious, and again, I'll go back to saying but I'm gonna juxtapose it with my current coverage of YSL. Like, I think my contribution, or part of my contribution, is the Black community, showing that's well, number one, it's hoping that some of this violence or genocide or some of the degenerate behavior try to solve it, because I know y'all must think that I'm this quasi non-Black person. Like, we all come from impoverished backgrounds, right? And it's like, okay, well,
who said that?
well, I'm just
Nobody
saying.
said that.
So when I use my platform to showcase areas and places that I feel like aren't clearly being ignored. The reason why I started the war in Chirac, I remember watching on the news and be like, yo, at that time, like in 2012, they're like, yo, oh shit, 4 people died, and everybody's wilding out for they're having think pieces for a while. Then I would look, or I'm just scrolling through news. I'm like, yo, 70 people got shot and nobody talks about it. So I took it upon myself. Granted, not in the best way. Should have never used satire. I've always said it. But that was my way, and that's what I said about even Traplo Ross. Bringing awareness is actually a thing. Having these conversations, I just always say, why are we stopping this conversation? Bringing awareness of some of the things, like, for example, say if I didn't have money, but I had a platform. If I tried to bring to the attention that people were homeless in anywhere, you know what I mean? And try to get them help. I think that's trying to help the Black community. I'm not focusing on what the fuck they're doing in Idaho, them white boys over there, because that's just not what I'm into. I'm focused on regions where music and similar interests of mine are affected. And in those situations, if I could bring awareness to either a situation or a particular place that seems like, they need immediate help, I think that's my contribution to the Black community. You know what I mean?
Well, I get it. And so I understand that. And I think that we all try to do that in our own ways. And by the way, everybody has a career, and they get their information out in the way that they do it. And there's always somebody to tell you that you're not doing it right, or tell you that you can be a little bit better at it. That's just, everybody here is a semi-public person, and so you're going to take the good with the bad. What I would say is like this, and then I'll give it back to Dave. I get that. And that's, to me, the reason why I've even talked to you about Traplo Ross before. I was like, yo, I learned about, in detail, what was going on in Jacksonville because I watched that video, right? And so that then made me actually reach out to people that I know that are from there. And I was like, yo, man, is it jumping that bad there? Is there anything that I can do? Like, when I was up there with Dave, talking to everybody, when I'm like, what can we do? Like, what can we do? You know what I'm saying? Like, in order to do this. And when we go back to the record companies, I think that the record companies, I think there are all kinds of things up there that's going on. The record companies are funded the bullshit. What they should be funding is Pastor Corey Brooks Community Center up there in Chicago. They should be funding what Dave's got going on. They should be funding what Larry Hoover Jr. and GLC and all of those guys up there that we didn't talk to. They should be funding that. And of course, even though she mad at me, Barbie, Inglewood Barbie, and the things that she got going on up there. Relax, nigga. Inglewood Barbie.
Come on, don't start that, man.
For real, bro. Like seriously, bro. And everything. No, not even getting on it. Like, that's a Black woman up there that is doing amazing things in Chicago, and the record companies should
and by the way,
funding her. These are the people. These are the people that I met. But listen.
No, I'm saying, how can we tangibly get to that, right?
Bring it up, Dave.
Let's use that situation, right?
I know the way that we can tangibly get to that is to keep that narrative going. And so,
but we got to keep our foot on the right people's necks. Remember when?
I understand that. I understand that. But what I'm saying is that comes back to how things are being covered. That's why it matters. Like, if you're telling me right now that you're going to cover homeless people, and we don't have to relitigate the war in Chirac, but like, if you're telling me that you're covering the homeless situation in a place and you're making fun of them, there are going to be a lot of people that think that you're unserious about it, right? And I understand, like, we don't have to go back there. What I'm saying is, now, for everyone, for you, for me, because you guys are way deeper and way more popular in that space than I do. I talk to a different group of people. We talk about senatorial politics and like socioeconomic situations and all kinds of stuff like that. I'm like not in that same space. The question is, how could your coverage and the way that you cover something actually lead to an outcome that is nutritious for the communities that you guys realize are in peril? Like, is there any way to do more? And do you even feel like you have to do that? Because if you feel like that you have to do that, then there'll be questions that you're willing to answer, and there'll be conversations that you're willing to have. And then I want to get Dave back in here. I don't want y'all to get to arguing, but I feel like Dave is the only one from Chicago, and he ain't talking that much.
Again, I'm not from Chicago, but I see a path to actually having some tangible things done, right? But I think conversations like this, and because it always stops like this, and then we start over again till we get outraged again about something that stops at that journalist or the media personality or the content creator. So this is what I believe, right? So remember a couple of years ago when, like everybody was just calling out a lot of these companies to be racist. And all of a sudden we had UMG, Sony Music, and obviously Warner Music. They're the big three that own all the music. They own about like 87% of all music, right? And everybody ponied up $100 million. They said, here's $100 million to black people. We don't know where that money went. We don't know where it got allocated to. Back maybe like a year or two ago, I made a personal donation to like Inglewood Barbie. And by the way, like obviously, Dave probably got his own things going on. Having some funding from the people, right? Not necessarily like, yeah, I might be decent off, but like these record labels, you could actually put them in a position where they have to give back. I think they watch these conversations, and even though we might mention that, who the real motherfucker who's actually benefited, it's not Tablo Ross with a video with 1 million views, it's the person who's actually making billions off of this. You could actually force them to at least put some resources back in the community that care about it and actually move around with it. Here's the thing. I am all the way in like, again, if my platform could be used to make that happen, I would love to do it. That's why I'm on here saying that. But you know what happens? Everybody else is going to be like, nah, nigga, it was you. You gave niggas nicknames. We're going to stop at that. That's the bigger fish you got to fry. It's like basically being mad about the laws of your city, but scared to go to one of these council meetings. Like, you don't even want to show up in politics. Yeah, you could talk about it all day, but if you want tangible results, maybe if there was, different allocations of funding for different things that could possibly try to help and quell these issues, maybe we would see a reduction in violence. It's not going to be like, oh, bro, you're making videos, that's why people are sliding. No, let's try to get more resources out of the people who are benefiting the most. And if you have people like myself who say, I'm not opposed to using my platform to push that issue, I don't know why it's always the name calling, like, oh yeah, you didn't, like, have you been to, like, no, it should be a collaborative thing. But again, I keep saying that these are the conversation. After this, it stops and we start back over.
So it's like, have you ever thought about, Dave, why no one from Chicago is in the position that Ak is in, or no one from Chicago is actually making the type of documentary that Trap Ross has made? Because the job that you guys doing, it's not like it's hard or it's special. The reason why no one from Chicago is doing that is because there's repercussions behind it. It's a lot of personal information. It's a lot of street business. So people feel like when you post the videos or you speaking on it, it's like, dude not even from here. He ain't even in tune with us. And this is the whole big reason why nobody from Chicago, nobody from Chicago would even make this video about Von, Dirt, Duck. Nobody from Chicago would do that. It's always somebody outside of the city that makes these videos. And when everybody, once the uproar come, why is everybody so uproar? Because this shit is dangerous. You're speaking on a lot of streets. Go ahead.
Can I give a counter on that? Because this is an interesting topic. Because I think a lot of people bring this up and they say, well, why is this lame white guy from England making these videos? But you're right. There actually is. The thing is, there is more repercussions. If you live on O Block and you make a video like the video I made, you're going to face repercussions. I've got hella people in my DMs saying if I step foot in Chicago, they're going to kill me, right? Whether or not I believe that, I don't know. but like it's probably maybe this week isn't the week for me to go to Chicago. But what I'm trying to say is that like is that like at the end of the day though, it's not necessarily a good thing that this culture of fear is being created in these communities where people don't feel like they could talk about this. Like, you know, look, a bunch of people in Chicago been knowing these rumors about Von. Okay, but it's a case that like, yeah, it took a white guy from England to put this information out there and get people thinking. But like, it's not necessarily a good thing that there's a culture of fear that people in Chicago that are living in these communities feel like they can't talk about it or report on it. And I actually, you know, people often hit me with the like, oh, you're a white guy, you know, don't support Trap Lord Ross, he's a culture vulture. But bro, I think that there's plenty of space for creators from Chicago or black creators to come in and make content. There's no stopping, you know, a young black media creative kind of guy coming through and making content in this space. And I think that, you know, that should be encouraged. I don't think people should be in fear of like violence if they talk about this kind of stuff on the internet. But if that's how the situation is, then maybe it makes sense that someone like me is making this stuff and someone in Chicago isn't. But at the same time, you know, it's sort of it's a funny argument. Like, I thought it was really interesting what Van said a minute ago when he was talking about like if he made like a bunch of videos on like the Holocaust, for example, or like World War II. It's like if you made a bunch of videos making a mockery of that situation, then yeah, it would be over for you. But then if you make something that's very thought-provoking and reasonable, like the movie Schindler's List, that's going to go on to win an Oscar. So I think the approach that people take on this kind of stuff really makes a difference. Yeah. But also, like, I'd always defend what Akademiks did with the war in Chirac. And I really feel like, to be honest, like, Ak gets it too negative when it comes to the war in Chirac because, you know, not a lot of people really give him credit. Like, people say, oh, he was making jokes and he was using satire. But bear in mind, when Akademiks covered the war in Chirac, this, outside of, like, the Chicago Tribune, and bear in mind, a lot of the times in those videos, you were reading videos from the newspapers in Chicago about the murders going on. So you weren't even the first person to bring it to attention. But as far as, like, the hip-hop listening community, you know, you were one of the first people bringing this shit to life, telling people, yo, you know, in my video, I mentioned the whole situation where Lil Mark got killed by the bus stop. And you're like, I can't believe that a guy with all this much beef would be standing by a bus stop. And it's like, you know, I don't think you were trying to make fun and be mean, but I think for you as an outsider, for an entire generation of people that hadn't heard these Chicago stories, like, it was absurd. And I think it was probably your natural response.
Ross, can I stop you before we get deep into the war in Chirac? I don't. We gotta be able to be real about the war in Chirac. He was calling them coons.
Hold on,
you know.
Hold on. Yeah. I was never calling the people who died. But like I was talking about the people. If anything, I was demonizing the people doing the killing.
I know. But what I'm saying is, we just got to bury that. It wasn't the right approach. Let's just move on. There's no need to everybody in the game of media has something that they've done or something that they've said they wish they either didn't do or did in a different way. Like Ross, all due respect, I don't even think you know why people are mad about that, because the cultural IQ to be able to understand it, not dissing at all, is probably not where it needs to be. We just don't need to keep relitigating the war in Chirac. What we're trying to
wait. I want to add one thing.
What we're talking about.
I want to add one thing about that, right? And I'm that's probably not negating your point, but I do want to say the majority of people who are mad at the war in Chirac never really watched it while it happened. This was something that they saw clips. They've never even seen the channel, right? You know, it's something that, so they've seen. And by the way, was that moments? It was definitely 2 months, obviously, right? But like they didn't even understand the approach, or maybe even why. So again, it's a lot of, you know, it's like clip based. You know, we're living a clip based culture. Again, not defending the approach. I still say wrong approach. But it's one of those things when, you know, I'm out here doing my thing and I'm shitting all these niggas in the game. That's the only thing they can bring up. Well, he did the war in Chirac. You know what I mean? That's the only thing they really bring up. And I get it, because I would definitely do it different. But I think when people do the right job in terms of like covering it, which I think Trap Lord Ross does, shit, I think Trap Geek does. Like, I think there's a lot of people there's this new realm of documentaries that are bringing people a little bit closer into, and I think this is necessary. If we all dance into the songs like Who I Smoke and you shout people's names out, it took me a while to know those are people who died. what Tuka was for a long time. It's important to know that. And if you think the audience should be so dull or so not in the know that they're celebrating the death of someone else, or it could be anybody without having known the context of why these songs were made, to each his own, but I can't necessarily agree with that. So I agree that, again, we don't have to defend the war in Chirac, but when we see people making documentaries about the people who are now making $1 million careers and songs about murder and violence, that we could understand what they're talking about, very important, if you ask me.
Can I just add one more thing to just elaborate on that? Because I just want to make sure that like my perspective on the war in Chirac is clear. I'm not necessarily, I've seen all of the war in Chirac. I'm not necessarily like defending everything in it. But what I am trying to say is that like at the time, no one had covered this type of stuff before, right? Ak was bringing the approach that at the time he thought was appropriate. Maybe he didn't realize how real shit got, but that was nearly 10 years ago, some of those things. And it's like now the culture has moved on so much. You've got someone like me where it's like enough time has passed, enough understanding has been developed that we know that Ak wouldn't talk about people in the way he talked about them back in the war in Chirac when this shit was fresh and he wasn't a big name. But it's like, I think enough people have gained an understanding of how real it is in Chicago that we now are ready to take it seriously. And I think it's almost like, I just want to make sure that like Ak gets his acknowledgement as far as like, he brought that shit to people's attention and now it's serious.
As you throw that acknowledgement to me, I want to actually throw the acknowledgement to somebody who I want to say rest in peace to. Rest in peace to Zach TV. For everything that, Dave says, like, Zach TV was doing that. He was going to talk to the people. And, not too sure exactly, like, we've heard stuff about, like, how he, what ended up with him being murdered. But, he definitely was all the way in it. And, obviously there was definitely repercussions in the sense of that. But, I just want to say salute to him. And I think his coverage was also necessary.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Why do you think, just for you, why do you think that Trap Lord Ross
he knows that
about you, but not about First of all, Trap Lord Ross, had you heard of Zach TV?
But
okay. All right, okay. Why do you think he credits you with that?
Because
not Zach TV?
I popularized it, right? So it's like, again, that like there are channels even now that talk about the same thing I talk about, but like when I talk about it, I was hitting a mainstream audience. My content at that point, like everybody keeps acting, and that's what I'm saying. They rewrite the history with me with the war in Chirac. Like I started there. No, I was covering mainstream artists, Kanye and Drake, back in 2010, right? But what happened was I started realizing I can't compete with the Breakfast Club, so I started covering these underground dudes that nobody would cover, right? And what happened was the mainstream audience would also look at it, but also there was an audience built in already. Like that's why I've always said, like, I didn't create that scene. That scene existed. But then the mainstream audience was peeking in and saying, what the hell is this? So that's why they give me a lot of credit. There were people before. I mean, shit, while I'm even giving out flowers here, like there's a dude, or there was two dudes, one down, that hates me over it. College kid. They were doing it before me. Like, people just credit me.
Hey, Ash, you I know one thing, man. You better have Illinois on your Chicago on your goddamn birth certificate, man. Because that's actually where you from, man. Hey, man, that's where
I love Chicago.
Look, let me tell you something. And like when you was doing all that reporting, the whole world really gravitated to you because they thought you was from Chicago. People from Chicago thought you was from Chicago. People was asking me, hey, man, he from the low end, right? We all was trying to figure out where this nigga from.
Okay. No, you're right. And let me kind of expound on that. Because, by the way, also this approach, too, right? Like, I think your approach is very reasonable. And I've always said, number one, I want to use my platform to I just don't want to be the person just posting shit, right? So I definitely want to have my platform to have a voice that stands, but also be a cause for change when we can, right? And Chicago is definitely a place where, eventually, and I mean, in any way possible, even now, we want to be able to help move forward change. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, if it's anything that could help in the sense of trying to create change, like, we'll definitely be a part of that. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, like, when it comes to places or cities that not only I love, or identify with just because I've loved the culture so much. Chicago is pretty much at top of the list. It's always been. You know what I mean? And like that's why I've always when people tell me like, yo, everybody hates you there, I'm like, no, that's lies. I look at my stats, like it's the most Chicago is still my #1 region that watches me to this day. And I rarely talk about some of the happenings going on there. So, obviously I definitely feel indebted to like, I give a quick parallel. Like I love what Angie does with the Shade Room. Angie's from Nigeria, if y'all know. And trust me, when it comes to some African issues, you go see it on the Shade Room because she loves where she's from. She's using her power and her platform to try to help create change or help people. That's definitely what I want to do, Obviously, I'm from Jamaica, and I try to do it with say Jamaica, but also Chicago is a place that's definitely it's very I love it. You know what I mean? So that's something without even asking, it's the right situations to really put those type of things together. You know what I mean?
Well, let's patch up this relationship with you in Chicago. It's a lot of things that you can do to help out. You know what I'm saying? Besides pointing all the negative shit. We actually love and like what you do. We just don't like the fact that you don't tap in and fuck with us. So if you're going to keep speaking on the city, not just fuck with Lil Durk, not just Chief Keef because they there. It's a whole bunch of us out here that's really helping this city and keeping the city alive. You know what I'm saying? And you need to be in tune with us and tap in with us like how Van got in tune with the people. Like I was telling Rose, when you do these documentaries, hit up O Block, hit up 63rd, hit up 71st. Talk to these people. That make it more authentic. When you ain't in tune with the people, that's how we feel about you. You ain't in tune with us. So yeah, we gonna say everything you say cap. Ross, his story, he ain't talk to nobody. Yeah, we gonna feel like it's cap. Now when you come and you talk to us, like you said, the labels give out money and they pitch in and they do what they do. Yeah, people start respecting, and now it's 50-50. So in, nobody's gonna like shit that you're doing because you ain't fucking with nobody. So fuck with us because you a Chiraqi.
And by the way, and not to defend Ross here, but I think what he does, right, it's hard. Like, again, just like how you're on here and you're like, yo, man, when Bob was talking about bodies, he might have been talking about what. It's like, you're not going to get an accurate conversation. Like, it's either people are self-snitching and you already have archived videos of people really just added on to the story, but no one, like, I'm pretty sure the families, out of fear of retaliation, they wouldn't want to get on camera to speak about what the death of maybe fans can get on the camera. You get what I mean? But they probably don't even want to speak on those type of things. You get what I mean? And also, people who might be in the know probably don't want to get on camera saying, "Oh yeah." Now, again, we don't know for fact, but everybody around here is saying that's what happened. Like nobody want to say that type of stuff. Like that could be putting them in danger as well. So, when it's an investigative type of thing. As long as he's not just making about a thin air, I think he was using actual sources from the people who were there and people surprisingly tell on themselves. But I don't know if he shows up. I mean, that could definitely show the humanity part of it because I don't think he's doing this to, just on some voyeuristic, look what these fucking animals are doing. So I definitely think that's needed in the sense of you want to make sure that if you're doing a documentary, you're not just laying out the facts and just ignoring the fact that there's a lot of hurt. So,
yeah. So let me ask something real quick. We can wrap this up because I really do think that despite the emotions and that everybody, and that everybody's livelihood is being discussed here, and an American city and all of these stuffs, we've gotten deep into a lot of things. I think this was a very constructive and nutritious conversation. This is what I'll say. I think the documentaries are well done. I watch them when they come out. I'm a YouTube fanatic. I watch all of the stuff. I try not to be precious about it. Even stuff that I don't like. But if the goal of one specific piece of art or commerce is to get people to watch it, that's one thing. The men on this call know how to do that. If the goal of a specific piece of art or commerce is to get people to understand a specific issue, the way it affects people and how people's lives are being impacted by it, that's a different thing. That second one, it's very difficult to do it without talking to people. It's just harder. It's like it is the first one, and it doesn't have to be cut and dry, right? The first one, if you watch any of the great documentaries that Vice has done, right? The mini documentaries, right? Like Vice did a documentary about a dude that was getting jumped into the crib. They beat the shit out that nigga, if y'all watch that bitch. And they were right there with him as he was being jumped in. Like they were right there in the middle of it. And so there's something, and you can see kind of the decisions that the person is making. You don't have to do it that way. But at some point, the human stories that you guys are talking about, like I know that when I did Hip Hop Homicide, I talked to people and they lied to me. They lied. They straight up lied. Ain't nobody gonna get on camera and say my son did this. They're not gonna do it. The question is, what part of their story is the truth? I tell you, the pain is the truth. I tell you, the feeling of frustration from having to bury so many people is the truth. When you talk to Duck Mama and you get and Mama Duck and shout out Mama Duck, listen to her talk about chaos. She don't mention one thing that the rest of the people out there talk about when she talk about chaos. She talk about chaos like to rap and dance and play basketball, and she talks about who K.I. was as a person and how much she misses her. And that to me was, I'm not gonna. That to me was, it reminded me that this is a human being that, and all of this shit is really fun. That's the last thing I'll say. But,
I just want to add to that point, and this is another cyclical loop that always happens, right? Because you're right. I remember I only started posting Mama Duck on my page because Mama Duck was in my DMs cussing me out saying, yo, you posted this guy while he was all alive, and my son is dead, and now I feel I'm getting some justice, and you're not posting that. You're being unfair. So I guarantee somebody else from afar might look at that and say, no, that's instigate. You're posting both sides. You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes, people, like, it's hard to be kind of like fair and impartial. And then, again, as I said, I don't think there's a perfect way to do it. I just hope that these conversations turn to be something else.
That's
that
actually
was
perfect.
my only thing about
that's
it.
That's actually perfect. Because on the street side, that's how you're not in the middle. Literally. Like, if you post Von and you post Duck, ain't nobody gonna look at you funny. But if you just post all Duck or you just post all Von, the streets feel like you chose your side. And that's why a lot of the backlash that you hear, it comes from the other side of whoever that person is. You know what I'm saying? So that's why the streets be trying to tell the bloggers and people making documentaries, you got to talk about the other people as well.
One thing I'll add to that, and this is really be the last thing I say, I gotta walk the dog, but when I was there, like we were on a blog, right? And it was crazy, right? Because like we were out there walking with the pastor, and like within like 5 minutes of being out there, I'm not even bullshitting y'all, it was like 60 niggas out there. Like really, they saw us out there. Like we knew we was with the pastor, so we was good. But everybody came out there, right? We talking to everybody, right? Do you know what really got me is the neighborhood they into
across the street
is right there. Like it's right there. Like I'm looking. I'm like, wait. I'm like, that's y'all ops. Like, and they're like, yeah, like right over there. Like that's the neighborhood y'all into it with. So how the fuck you walk down the street? Like it really crystallized to me, and this is it crystallized to me like how the shit is. Like every day your life being on the line. Like every day you ride and you like it's right there. Like they right up the street. Like they right up the street. And I was really surprised about some of the intricacies about the politics and all of that. Anyway, I appreciate you, Ross. I appreciate you.
You know it.
Dave, always, bro. We gonna all